sparkling day. Welcome to Porchlight Letters podcast number 2535. Whew, we're getting up there in numbers, and we're almost at the 7-year mark. So we've almost completed 7 years of daily lives. Some days it was 2 or 3 times a day, just depended on the day. But yeah, we're quickly approaching 7 years of continual daily lives. So yeah, we're going to be announcing something about that soon, about what we're going to be doing. And you have to, and we have, we give special gifts away on each of the anniversaries. But you have to be watching it in order to get it. And even if you watch the replay, you will not get it. It has to be live. So mark that down it'll be July 30th in the US and July 31st here in New Zealand. So mark that on your calendars. Okay, so today we are talking about a very interesting topic, because I have seen several points of view on this and listened to stories about this. But our question today is, where was your family when they came home from war? And war could be World War I, it could be World War II, it could be Korean War, Vietnam, all the ones that have taken place since the Vietnam War. I can't even think of them all right now. There was one I was almost redrafted for. I'd left the Air Force and I was up for what was that? The Gulf War. Sorry, the Gulf War. Yes, I didn't get to go on that one because they would have had to re-up me, but we didn't have to do that. But I've also been watching recently a lot of, they come up in shorts and reels and all that as I'm going through and watching all the World Cup soccer fans doing their thing and everything else and having a blast watching that, seeing them figure out that, there's free refills on soda. There's free coffee refills. When you're in a diner or a restaurant or something, they'll refill your cup for you with no extra charge. And then the portion sizes have blown them away. And then going to places like Costco and seeing them, boxes, bags of stuff, and some of them have had problems getting ranch dressing through their carry-on luggage. The ranch thing's gotten so bad. There's now TikToks on taking the little 30 ml, 100 ml bottles or 3 ounce bottles, filling them with ranch dressing and putting them into your carry-on. But now the airports have gotten wise, and that they are now putting bottles of ranch. They now have bottles of ranch dressing available for sale when you get through security. In the duty-free store, there are now bottles of ranch dressing for them to take home with them. I was talking to somebody this morning about the World Cup and how much it has shown the world the positive side of America, because they say all you get to see on the news and stuff is how bad things are in America. And yet this World Cup, with all the videos that are being posted by all the people all the fans that have come into town to see their country play in the World Cup, has given a completely different perspective on the US. Completely different. You can see it in the comments of the videos as they're going. You can see it in the videos that they post, hear about it. And people are going, we came over here and we got told this, and this about America. None of it was true. We came over, we've had nothing but good interactions with the locals and everything else. Everybody's been so warm and welcoming. Just watch the videos. Don't watch the news and hear about all the negativity. Watch the videos to see how the US are responding to those from other countries and how other countries are responding to the US. It is absolutely fantastic to see so many people coming together to say, and the Americans coming together saying, this is our country. We are proud of this. And, you've got the Relay for America that ran the US flag from the Bay in San Francisco all the way across America to DC to arrive on the 4th of July for 20 days straight. That flag never stopped moving. It was constantly being moved. And to see how the country came together to support that. And you're seeing videos from people on the side of the road as they're watching the runners run, and some people would start joining them to run through their town or through their neighborhood or whatever. It was an incredible, and the videos are still up there. It was just so incredible to see. And then seeing the fans coming over, the Tartan Army, and my hat's off to the Tartan Army for what they did in Boston and Miami. And then you've got the Norwegian guys with their rowing. They were even on there was a video of them on one of the naval ships, one of the Norwegian naval ships, and the whole crew's out there on the deck, and they're all rowing. Before the soccer games, they had the guys come out with the drums and having them row, and then you've got the Dutch who were out there, and they were saying, "Hey, look, meet us down here in this place in town. You don't have to be Dutch to come. Just wear orange." that was basically their instructions, and then thousands would come down to downtown, and they would do that little hoppity step thing to the side and back to the other side again, and it was really cool to watch. But and sometimes you've got the wars that are going on, and sometimes people forget. Sometimes people will forget that there's a war going on, or that something is not quite right. But there were wars that impacted the world in various ways. Yes, now we're coming together as comrades, just as people, just coming together from all nations, and just becoming a melting pot of teaching each other their cultures and just having a blast. Whether their soccer team made it through or not, it didn't matter. The fans had a blast and had such a great time with the Americans and stuff. I have to tell you, it is. I got very emotional about watching some of them, and just how people say, "We're not Scott, but we're down here, we're partying with them," and I've seen videos of empty streets in Boston with the words "No Scotland, no party" across the video. So Boston is very much missing the Tartan Army, and I think Miami's in the same place as well. They were forced to be reckoned with. But then you've got the other side of things where there are wars and there are people coming home from war. And we've got the wars that we've got today that are going on, and we've got those that took place, World War I, World War II, the Vietnam, the Korean, and a whole bunch of other ones in there as well. I know I'm not covering all of them, but they're in there, where you had family members that went away to fight for their country. Think back or ask older generations, what was it like when they came home? Did they just come home and got picked up from wherever and walked in the door, or had somebody drop them off at their house? Was there a big fanfare when they came home? Who was there to welcome them when they arrived? Where did they go when they got home? Did they go straight home? Did they go to a base or something before they got dismissed to be able to go home? What, for those that were in the wars that have been, in the 20th century and into the 21st century, what was it like for you to come home? How long were you away for? And that would affect how they came home as well. There was a lot of stuff that was going on. My grandfather never talked about his days in the war, never talked about them. It wasn't until a few years ago I found out why. And I'm not going to go into the details because it was traumatic for him. But my grandmother, you couldn't shut her up about them. She was in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. In fact, I found their book the other day. Where did I put that book? Oh, there it is. Hang on, one moment. So this woman put together a scrapbook. She calls it a scrapbook of wartime memories compiled by Bethia Mackenzie. And it's called the WAF book. WAF stands for Women's Auxiliary Air Force. And this just has story after story after story of these women who served in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. Hang on, is there one that was just outlined? Oh no, it was how it was written. I thought my grandmother had outlined. Hang on, there we go. Where is she? I know my grandmother's in this photo here somewhere. I'd have to get the magnifying glass to look at it. I think that's her there, but I would need the magnifying glass to do that. But she's in this photograph down here. And this photograph actually at one point was hanging in a display on the at the Royal New Zealand Air Force Museum in Wigram. And in the display was my grandmother's uniform, which I have a picture of me on with my grandmother and my grandfather on either side of me. And it was Easter weekend in 1984. And a week later, after that picture was taken, I was on a bus on my way down to spend the night in Wellington. And then the next day I was flying across to the RNZAF base Woodburn. And that was the last day of April 30th. And then May 1st we got to sign in as sworn in as Royal New Zealand Air Force. But this is a book about that, about their memories of the work that they did during World War II. My grandmother always, one of her favorite stories to tell, which is not in the book, was that my dad was the only person, the only male to ever play on the WAF's hockey team. My grandmother played field hockey, and she was a goalie. Just to put it into context, and this is the 1940s. They really didn't have any protective gear back then, and she was 8 months pregnant with my dad when she was playing goalie on the women's auxiliary on the WAF's field hockey team as goalie, 8 months pregnant with my dad. And so he's the only male to ever have played on the Women's Auxiliary Air Force field hockey team. That was her favorite story. That was one of her favorite stories to tell. But, people come back with different outlooks, different perspectives based on what they've seen, based on the experiences that they have had. Some have had very traumatic experiences over there with what they have seen, what they have heard, how it goes against their belief, how something they had to do went against their beliefs as who they were as a core person, and deep in their core to that. And they had to do stuff that was against what their foundational beliefs were. So there was a lot of time when these guys went through a lot, and they are in our current military are still going through a lot of this. Families waited with hope in their hearts, counting the days until they could be together again. Every letter that arrived, every telegram delivered. Oh yeah, some people may not know what a telegram is. You could send via wire, because calling on the telephone, some places they didn't have telephones, but calling on the telephone, but they could get a wire through the thing, and it was usually done in Morse code, and they would tap it out, and somebody at the other end would then write it out for them, and then they would take that piece of paper and deliver it to the house. It was a telegram. And every piece of news from overseas carried a mixture of relief and anxiety. No one knew exactly what tomorrow would bring, but they held on to the hope that one day their loved one would return home. When the day finally came, it was unforgettable. There were hugs that lasted longer than words. Oh, jeepers, I'm going to get emotional on this. Tears of relief, joyful reunions at railway stations and docks, and quiet moments around the family table. For many families, it was the happiest day they had experienced in years. Coming home, however, was not always the end of the journey. Many servicemen and women returned carrying memories, injuries, and experiences that changed them forever. Families also had to adjust, finding a new rhythm together after months or years apart. This still happens today. Home looked the same, but life had changed for everyone. There are stories that deserve to be remembered. The photographs of homecoming, the welcome home banners, the treasured letters, and the memories shared by those who were there help us understand not only the sacrifices made during war, but also the strength and resilience of the families who waited. So now your challenge for today is go and ask a family member about someone in your family who came home from war. How did everyone learn they were returning? Who was there to welcome them? What was their first day together like? Record these memories while they can still be shared, because these homecoming stories are an important part of your family's history. And let us know in the comments below some of the stories that you uncover and how the family was affected. And like I said, I've been watching the shorts and the reels for the World Cup, but also in between that was June 6th with D-Day at Normandy. And they're still filtering out videos of veterans who had landed on those beaches, 80 odd years ago. And 80 odd years ago. I'm trying to remember the history a little bit. 80 years. And these guys are now in their late 90s, early hundreds. And they had been back. It was the first time they had been back since they had left since they'd landed on the beach. And they would sit around, and you would see some of them sitting there with children around them as they told their version from their point of view of what happened that day when they landed on the beach, which for the children that were sitting around them was would have been such an incredible experience to be able to sit there and listen to those stories. I love to tell stories, but most importantly, I love to hear the stories. I love to hear those stories. And I will get involved with the story. I will get immersed into the story. I will get emotional with it, because that's who I am. That's my empathic, I think that's the right word, inside coming out. We were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So whenever you're around people who are willing to share their memories, zip it and listen. Tune in and listen. Record them if you can, especially record them. But just zip this. You can ask clarifying questions, but basically just zip it and let them tell their story. Don't try not to interrupt them and then go back afterwards and say, oh, you mentioned here this. Can you expand on that a little bit? Some people will be willing to sit and share the stories from the war, and some would have been so traumatized by it in some way that they may not be willing to talk at all. Respect their decision as to whether or not they want to share. Don't turn around and say, oh, but future generations want to know what it was like for you. You can mention that you want to record their memories for future generations, but leave it up to them if they want to share the stories. This is such an important thing, especially when it comes to war, with what they see, what they experience, and that turns around and that has a lot of effect on their mentality, their emotions, even in some cases their physicality, because they may have been injured while they were over there. But just respect. If they don't want to talk about, please respect them and not try and bribe them into doing it, manipulate them into it. Don't do that. Just go, I totally respect your opinion. If there's any time that you decide to tell the story, I would be willing to listen. But let's move on and talk about a different topic. So take that time and be respectful of them, because they've seen things that we will never see. They've been in situations that we may never be in. So there's a lot of stuff out there that they will be turning around and going, I don't want my family to know about this. It's like with my grandfather, it was only a few years ago, and he passed in 1986. Yeah, I think it was 86. It was Queen's birthday weekend, 86. He passed away. And it wasn't until a few years ago I found out. I was sent a document that my grandmother had written, and it was based on her memories of what her husband had told her about his time in the war. And it was basically the only time that anybody knew of that he had actually talked about it. And so she sat down and typed up her recollection of what he said. And I only got a copy of that a few years ago. And I was and once I read that, it made sense to me. It made sense as to why he wouldn't talk about what he had been through. I really felt for him, for what he had to go through. But you know what? He was still a great grandfather. My granddad was awesome. I love my granddad. I love my I'm very fortunate I got to meet one set of great grandparents, and I had all 4 grandparents for most of my growing up years. It wasn't until I'd left home and stuff that they started dropping off. That's probably not the right word either. But I was very fortunate to have grandparents around and to get to spend time with them and stuff. And my dad's parents were awesome. Granddad became a master storyteller. You wanted to hear stories, so he would make up stories for you. He was very good at making up stories. So I got a lot of creativity from him. I think that's where most of my creativity came from. And Grandma would always be happy to talk about she'd always be happy to talk about her WAF days. Because the WAFs did not see any frontline action. They were there purely for support. They were purely support personnel based here in New Zealand. And they were, and it wasn't until years later, after the war, that the WAFs were merged into the Royal New Zealand Air Force. So yeah, there's lots of different stories out there. People have perspectives. Some are willing to talk and share, and some are not. So with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at some time. I'll probably be spending the afternoon with my mum and dad. So, yeah, it'll be sometime tomorrow. I don't know when, but it will be sometime tomorrow. Okay, so go out, and it'll probably be about 10 o'clock at night, 10 p.m. Pacific time. I'm sorry, but I'm going to get to spend the afternoon with my parents. Sundays, I usually get to spend the afternoon with my parents. So, yeah. With that, we're out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening.